You climb the final worn stone steps. Millions of feet have passed here before yours. Pilgrims, soldiers, priests, kings, conquerors. The morning light strikes your face as you emerge onto the vast plateau of white limestone that Jews call Har HaBayit, the Temple Mount, and Muslims know as Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary. The air feels different here, thinner, older. The dome of the rock rises in golden silence. Its cupola captures the rising sun and returns it in waves of light that seem to pulse with breath. Turquoise, cobalt, and gold tiles cover the octagonal walls, perfect geometry erected upon the chaos of human history. You walk slowly across the polished marble. Your steps echo softly against stone that remembers footsteps from 30 centuries. Around you, the space opens in every direction. To the north, the minarets of the old city pierce the sky. To the west, the ancient stones of the western wall descend into shadow. To the east, the Mount of Olives watches in olive-green silence, its slopes heavy with tombs. But your eyes return to the structure before you, the dome, the shrine, the mystery dot. You approach the eastern entrance. The columns frame darkness within. You step inside, and the temperature drops. The light changes. Blues, greens, reds filter through stained glass and dance across marble floors worn smooth by 14 centuries of reverence. The circular interior draws your gaze upward. Golden mosaics spiral toward the apex of the dome in patterns of vines and geometric perfection. Arabic inscriptions ring the walls. Quranic verses written in the 7th century by caliphal order. But none of this is what you came to see. Your eyes lower, and there it is Dot in the center of the shrine. Rising from the floor like the exposed spine of the earth itself lies an enormous outcrop of pale bedrock. Irregular, ancient, uncut. Stone measures roughly 18 meters long and 13 meters wide. Its surface is uneven, scarred by time, touched by countless hands across millennia. A small cave opens beneath its southern edge, accessible by stairs that descend into shadow. This is the foundation stone. In Hebrew, even Hashiteya. In Arabic, Al-Sakra. You stand still. The silence presses against your ears. This single piece of bedrock has shaped the spiritual geography of half the human race. 3 faiths, countless wars, endless prayers. And beneath it, beneath the golden dome, beneath the shrine, beneath the marble, lies a question that has never been fully answered. What exactly happened here? You step closer to the ancient railing that surrounds the stone. The rock surface shows marks, some natural, some possibly carved. A rectangular indentation near the center. Channels that may have once directed liquid. A small hole that penetrates the stone above the cave below. These marks have been interpreted and reinterpreted for 3,000 years. Each generation has seen something different. Each faith has claimed something sacred. Dot, the stone does not speak. But it remembers. Dot, and if you stand here long enough, if you breathe slowly enough, the centuries begin to unfold around you like pages of a book that has never been closed. You remain standing before the stone. Tourists move around you like water or on a rock in a stream. But your gaze stays fixed on the pale bedrock, and slowly the present begins to dissolve. The golden dome fades. The marble floor turns to bare earth. The walls crumble into dust, then into nothing. You are standing on the same stone, but the millennium is different now. It is approximately 1000 BCE. The hilltop lies exposed to open sky. Jerusalem is a small Jebusite fortress recently conquered by a tribal king named David. The stone beneath your feet is a threshing floor, flat bedrock where farmers separate wheat from chaff in the highland wind. A man named Araunah owns this floor. The second book of Samuel records what happens next. David purchases it for 50 shekels of silver. He builds an altar. He offers sacrifices. The plague devastating his people stops at this place. You look down. The same stone. The first altar dot the air shifts. Decades pass like breaths. Solomon now stands where you stand. First Kings describes what rises here. A temple of cedar and gold, its inner sanctuary overlaid with precious metal, its courts filled with bronze and fire. The stone becomes the floor of the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodashim. Above it, between two golden cherubim, rests the Ark of the Covenant. The Mishnah, compiled around 200 CE, preserves ancient traditions. The stone stood 3 fingerbreadths above the floor. Upon it, the high priest placed the incense censer on the Day of Atonement. Within this chamber, he spoke the unutterable name of God. You breathe. Centuries collapse. 586 BCE, Nebuchadnezzar's armies breach the walls. Fire consumes the temple. The ark vanishes, taken, hidden, or destroyed. No one knows. The stone remains. For 70 years, it lies exposed to rain and sun, while the people weep by the rivers of Babylon. Then return, then rebuilding. The second temple rises on the same foundations, more modest than the first. The Holy of Holies stands empty now. No ark, only the stone itself. The high priest still enters once a year, still offers incense, still speaks the sacred name into silence. Centuries accelerate. Herod the Great transforms the modest temple into one of the ancient world's wonders. His engineers extend the hilltop with massive retaining walls, creating the vast plaza that exists today. The temple rises in white stone and gold. Josephus writes that from a distance, in morning sun, it looked like a mountain covered in snow. But the original bedrock remains untouched at the heart of it all. The Holy of Holies built directly above it, the veil hanging before it, the presence dwelling upon it, then Roman fire. The year is 70 CE. Titus's legions pour through the streets. The temple burns. The veil tears. The gold melts. 1,000 years of continuous worship ends in a single summer of blood and flames. The stone endures. Scorched, perhaps. Exposed, certainly. But unbroken, you stand on it still. The same stone. Layer after layer of memory pressed into its surface like sediment, like grief, like hope refusing to die. You remain motionless before the stone, but the questions begin to rise around you, like voices in a crowded room. The silence of the shrine cannot contain them. For centuries, scholars, priests, rabbis, archaeologists, and theologians have stood where you stand and asked the same questions. The answers have never been simple. The first question is location. Is this truly the site of the Holy of Holies? You look at the stone surface. The traditional Jewish and Islamic identification places, the foundation stone directly beneath where the Ark of the Covenant once rested. This tradition is ancient. The earliest Islamic sources, including accounts from the conquest of Jerusalem in 637 CE, record that Caliph Umar was guided to this spot by a Jewish convert named Ka'b al-Ahbar, who identified the rock as the sacred center of Solomon's temple. The Dome of the Rock, completed in 691 CE under Caliph Abd al-Malik, was built specifically to enshrine this stone. But modern archaeology has introduced complexity, because no excavations have ever been permitted on the Temple Mount itself. Its sanctity forbids it for Jews, and political realities make it impossible. Scholars must work from indirect evidence. The 19th century surveys conducted by Charles Warren, the analysis of the visible Herodian walls, the study of ancient descriptions in Josephus and the Mishnah, all of these have generated competing theories. Some scholars argue that the temple stood exactly where tradition places it, with the Holy of Holies directly over the foundation stone. The rectangular indentation on the stone surface, they suggest, may mark where the ark once rested. Others propose that the temple stood slightly to the north, placing the stone not in the Holy of Holies, but in the outer court, perhaps at the site of the great altar of sacrifice. Still others have suggested a southern location, which would place the stone outside the temple precincts entirely. You study the rock surface, the channels carved into it. Were they for draining sacrificial blood, as some have argued? Or are they natural formations, weathered by millennia of rain before any temple was built? The hole that penetrates to the cave below, was it designed for some ritual purpose? Or is it simply a geological feature? The stone holds its secrets. The absence of excavation means the debate cannot be resolved by evidence alone. But there is another layer of interpretation, and it belongs to the Christian tradition. You turn slowly, looking at the space around you. For Christians, this hilltop carries a different weight of meaning. The Gospels record that Jesus visited the temple multiple times, as an infant for his presentation, as a boy of 12 discussing Torah with the teachers, as a man driving out the money changers with a whip of cords. He walked on these stones. He taught in these courts. He wept over Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives, looking directly at this place. The New Testament reinterprets the temple through the lens of Christ's death and resurrection. The Gospel of Matthew records that when Jesus died on the cross, the veil of the temple, the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies from the outer sanctuary, was torn in two from top to bottom. For Christian theology, this moment signified a profound shift. Access to God's presence was no longer mediated through a single sacred space, a single stone, a single annual entrance by the high priest. The presence that once dwelt above the foundation stone had become, in Christian understanding, available to all through Christ. The writer of Hebrews develops this theology explicitly. Jesus is described as the true high priest who enters not an earthly sanctuary made with hands, but the heavenly sanctuary itself. The sacrifices once offered on the temple altar find their fulfillment in Christ's single final sacrifice. The stone, the altar, the Holy of Holies, all become, in this reading, shadows pointing toward a greater reality. This does not diminish the stone's historical significance, but it reframes it. For Christians standing where you stand, this is not primarily a place of ongoing sacred presence. It is a place of memory, sacred memory, profound memory, but memory of something that has been fulfilled and transcended. You look down at the pale bedrock. Jews, Christians, Muslims, each tradition sees something different when it looks at this stone. Each claims a connection. Each holds a piece of the truth. And the stone itself remains silent, holding all their prayers and none of their arguments. You have been standing here for what feels like hours. The light filtering through the stained glass has shifted. The shadows on the stone have moved. The tourists have cycled through. New faces, same reverence, same cameras, same hushed voices in a dozen languages. But you remain still, and the stone remains stiller. You think about what lies beneath your feet. Not just the cave that opens below the rock's surface, that small chamber where, according to medieval tradition, the spirits of the dead gather to pray, but the layers of meaning that have accumulated here like geological strata. Each generation has added something. Each conquest has scraped something away. And yet the bedrock endures, indifferent to interpretation, holding the weight of everything built upon it. The foundation stone. The name itself carries theological weight. The Talmud records that the world was founded from this point. That creation expanded outward from this single piece of rock like ripples from a stone cast into still water. Whether understood literally or metaphorically, the image speaks to something deep in the human need for center, for origin, for a place where heaven and earth intersect. You look at the marks on the stone surface. Perhaps the Ark of the Covenant once rested here. Perhaps the blood of 1,000 sacrifices once flowed across this rock. Perhaps Abraham bound Isaac on this very outcrop, as both Jewish and Islamic traditions suggest, though the Genesis account names the place only as Mount Moriah, and The identification with this specific hilltop came centuries later. Perhaps none of these things happened exactly as tradition remembers. The stone does not confirm or deny. It simply exists, and yet existence itself is not nothing. This rock is real. It can be touched. It has been touched by hands that are now dust, by priests whose names are forgotten, by conquerors whose empires have crumbled. The western wall below, those massive Herodian stones that Jews have prayed against for centuries, are younger than this bedrock by 1,000 years. The golden dome above is younger still. Everything built by human hands will eventually fall. The stone remains. You step back slowly. The circular shrine surrounds you. The mosaics spiral upward. The inscriptions proclaim the oneness of God in elegant Arabic script, some of them directly addressing Christian claims about Christ, asserting that God has no son, that Jesus was a prophet and no more. These inscriptions, written in the 7th century, remind you that this place has always been contested. Sacred space invites conflict. What humans treasure, humans fight to possess. But standing here, in the stillness beneath the dome, the conflicts feel distant. What remains is the stone. What remains is the question that every visitor eventually asks. Why here? Why this particular outcrop of Cenomanian limestone on this particular hill in this particular city? What is it about this place that has drawn the prayers of billions across 3,000 years? The answer, perhaps, is that the stone has become what humanity has made it. It is sacred because it has been treated as sacred. It is holy because generations have consecrated it with their belief, their blood, their tears, their songs. The presence of God, if God is present here, dwells not in the rock itself, but in the faith that the rock has gathered to itself, like a vessel gathering water. For Christians, this understanding aligns with the New Testament's teaching that God no longer dwells in temples made with hands. The book of Acts records Stephen declaring this before his martyrdom. Paul writes to the Corinthians that they themselves are the temple of the living God. The presence has moved. The stone remains as witness to what was, as memorial to the centuries when this hilltop was the axis of Israelite worship, as reminder that the God who once commanded a temple to be built here is the same God who, in Christian understanding, tore the veil and walked out into the world. You turn toward the exit. The light outside is brighter now. The call to prayer will sound soon from the minarets. Jewish worshippers are gathering below at the western wall. Somewhere in the Christian quarter, church bells are ringing. You take one last look at the foundation stone. It holds your gaze for a moment, pale and ancient and silent. Then you step back into the light, carrying with you what everyone who visits this place carries away. Not answers, but deeper questions. Not certainty, but awe. The stone remains.